year I got him tickets to go see Jeff Beck,
Ooh,
and then Johnny Depp showed up at the concert.
right. I remember that story.
I'm just watching as if Jeff Beck's not enough to make a great live guitar player show. Oh, okay. Right, isn't it that guy that plays Captain Jack Sparrow? That was not my first response. My first response was, "Man, that guy looks a lot like Johnny Depp," because they never introduced him or anything. They never said, "Hey, look who's here, Johnny Depp," because Jeff Beck never said anything. Which I appreciate that in a rock and roller, by the way, because some of them want to talk too much. Most of the older ones want to talk talk about the old times, Like, just play the music, man.
And every concert's
You
like,
could record all this and put it on a link, and just put it on YouTube. We'll watch it later.
it seems like all the musicians that come here are like, "What's up, Tulsa? We love you, Tulsa."
Yeah.
You don't love Tulsa.
Hey, hey, they do, man. One time, my favorite band is Boston. You know that.
Yeah.
And I've seen them in concert, I guess 3 times. And back in the early 90s, I saw them in concert here in Tulsa. And when they finish the show, and they come back out for an encore, the singer, who's now deceased, he said, "Hey, we've got a little extra time before we have to get on the road. And, we don't know when we might make it back to Tulsa again. Who knows? So we're going to give you guys more than an encore." And they played like 5 or 6 more songs. And I thought that was just so cool. I thought that's kind of personalized,
Mm-hmm.
3 nights later, my sister sees them in Denver. He says exactly the same words, word for word.
Wow.
And now, I don't hold it against Brad Delp. God rest his soul. But it hurt a little bit for a while. I'm over it now. I've forgiven him for being so disingenuous. But I really bought into it. But I was talking to somebody about that and a couple other things that have happened like that, where it feels like the concert's kind of like they're saying something just to this crowd. And it was actually a guy in Germany that he's been to a lot of concerts. And he said, these tours today, even the smaller tours, there's so much investment in them that the people who put up the money for the tour, whoever the studio or private investors, they don't want there's no room for ad-libbing anything. There's no room for just saying stuff like, "Let's just do 5 or 6 more songs. What do you want to do next?" Shout out give us your suggestion. There's none of that, or maybe someday, I don't know. But generally, though, they just don't have there's no room for error, because a huge mistake or playing a song they haven't rehearsed already, or playing a song they haven't choreographed yet, or whatever their deal is, and they did it wrong, or they do it sloppy or whatever, that just puts into sales then. And now with the internet, people are recording all this stuff, and it gets on YouTube immediately from the venue, right? People are uploading that stuff, and then all of a sudden, word gets around that it's not that good of a show, and they can't sell more tickets. So that makes sense to me. So it's nice to try to make you feel like you're special, but William, I just want to tell you that you're not.
I know.
Thought I reinforced. Despite what your mom hasn't told you. We have that kind of relationship. All right. Let me see here. It's very important that I'm on camera. Good. So yesterday we had some philosophical questions on the board. You gave me some good ones. And there were a couple that came up that were, and I maybe shouldn't have erased them, but I kind of had to. But there is one question, and it was actually posed a few different ways here in the way that you guys gave them to me. But it seems to be kind of a trite question, kind of a stereotypical question. But it is a core question, though, whether it sounds like it's overused or not, and that's about meaning. about giving your life meaning or understanding what your life's meaning is. And that has to be at the center of all philosophical thought. Ultimately, it's at the center of that. So, it comes at this question from way out somewhere. But I think the spokes all lead to the center of the tire. Or the wheel. It's all going to come back there eventually. So we'll talk about a lot of things in this class that maybe don't seem like about the meaning of life, but the eventual goal is to get to that point, though. But in order to get there, you've got to take these hurdles along the way. But this question about meaning is significant, and it's one that none of us avoid. Like whether you take this class or not, or whether you watch Monty Python, The Meaning of Life. That's a great movie. I can't show it in the class for different reasons, but if you have progressive parents, maybe you can watch it at home. It was made in the 80s. It's still a little rough, you know. But it doesn't really address this question much at all. But if you, doesn't matter. If you're a hermit living in the middle of nowhere, if you're a monk in a monastery, if you're just a regular mom or dad and raising your kids, and or if you're a college student or a high school student, it's really hard to avoid this question of meaning and how do I give my life meaning, real meaning. Plato calls this kind of question a stubborn question. It's almost, what do you call that, personification, right? Questions aren't stubborn. Animals and people are stubborn, I guess. But it's a stubborn question, like it just keeps coming back. Like you can think, oh, I got the answer, or oh, I know now, or I don't care anymore, I'm just gonna live my life. That might be, but it's gonna keep like representing itself to you and keep coming back. It's stubborn in that way. The question itself isn't stubborn. I think life is kind of stubborn, and eventually you have you re-encounter this question. So meaning of life is important, and there's a few ways we can go about like answering this question about meaning. And there may be other ways, but I feel like this is pretty comprehensive because they're pretty broad ways. One is the way that many people, that's not going to work. The way that many people approach it, and that's with a theistic approach to it. And you can apply this to a lot of philosophical questions, but a theistic approach would be that meaning in life, let's say just for this question, comes through a faith or belief in God and the teachings of that God and what God wants you to do. And through those teachings and through what God demands of you, and I say God, and whatever that God might be, or whoever that God might be, that's where you derive your meaning. Meaning ultimately comes from God. That makes sense, theistic approach. And without God, people kind of taking this approach, without God, life has no meaning. Life has no meaning. If somehow it was proven to them that there was no God, and they believed that, then life doesn't have a meaning. But that's one way to approach it. Of course, the other way is the opposite of this, is the non-theistic approach. And it says that you can find meaning in life without an appeal to a higher power or to a god or the gods. You can impose or find meaning yourself on your own. You have the intellect and the ability and the freedom to find meaning. And so maybe you find meaning in academia, maybe you find meaning in family life, maybe you find meaning in your talents of some sort. Maybe you find it in writing or art or some kind of passion that you have in that way. So God wasn't a part of that in that kind of thinking. You came to this conclusion on your own. You tried a bunch of different things and found what you really loved, and now that's where you find meaning. So possible, devoid of God, you can find and impose on yourself, label yourself as this is what your meaning is. Yeah, my meaning is to paint landscapes, so to paint fruit in bowls.
So
Okay.
Sarah said that she had a doctor's appointment.
Okay. All right. She got, thank you. She got the link, but she can look at it later on. There's a third approach to this that, and I kind of mentioned it just a minute ago, and it sounds a little bit cynical, maybe, but it's it is one of these approaches, and it's referred to as the whole question approach. Of course, the question being, what's the meaning of life? Let's say, just to say it. Whole question approach says that there is no significant answer to the question, what's the meaning of life? There is no significant answer to that. And therefore, any question that doesn't have a significant answer is not worth asking or bothering your time trying to answer. So the idea is you just kind of throw out the whole question. There is no answer. Just go live your life. Yeah. Don't waste your time thinking about this too much. So it's kind of a disposal of the whole question. That sounds cynical, but I don't know that maybe, a lot of people, maybe if somebody's really pursuing this idea of meaning, you might eventually come to this conclusion for a while, maybe stay with it, but I don't know. Who knows? Yes?
So you say the definition of philosophy is the study of the meaning of life?
I would say that's definitely a definition, yes. In fact, I'm going to get into some definitions in a little bit. But I would say at its core that man, as human beings, we seek meaning in life. We seek meaning in everything, it seems like, and we seek order in things as well. I mean, our mind and our brains, our gut, seek order, and meaning in things. So we see things happening and we try to explain it to ourselves, right? There's a I don't know, I guess it's psychology. I'm not sure what this falls under. It's called, there's an effect called pareidolia. Have you heard of it before? Pareidolia? Where people's, especially, and all of us have experienced this. Probably you've had this experience when you were younger in your bedroom where you wake up and you look over the corner and you think you see somebody standing there, or you see like a what looks like an alligator or something on the floor, and you think, because in the dark, in your eyes, it looks like an alligator, and you reach over with the lights on and it's just your jeans that you just kind of tore off, when you crawled into bed. It's and people have this experience of seeing things, but that's the eyes giving data to the brain, and the brain trying to make order out of what it's taking in. And of course, when we're children, we might jump to some conclusions that aren't rational. But this happens even to people, adults. They think they see certain things, or people used to think that they saw like faces, like in the knots of trees. You see, it looks like there's two eyes, and they would think, there's people in the woods. So living up there, staring at us and stuff. Looks like it. It does look like it. People thought they saw the Virgin Mary on a grilled cheese sandwich one time, Well, the way that the grill or whatever burned on it did look a little bit like, but, I'm not going to venerate this thing. I might eat it, but.
They had one that looked like Jesus, and I called it grilled Jesus.
Grilled Jesus.
Might be a little bit fancy.
Maybe, but you're not going to market that somehow. Just if you don't have any concern for your eternal soul. All right, you take the whole question approach. Yeah, so we'll get to some definitions here in a little bit. But anyway, this is, and again, these can be applied to other philosophical questions as well. I'm applying here to the meaning of life, but perhaps a lot of times it comes down to a theistic or non-theistic approach, or just maybe frustrated approach of saying, I don't know, I'm just gonna. But this idea, if you decided to take your life and I don't want to be around people, and I'm gonna go live out in the middle of nowhere and build a cabin and hunt and just take care of myself, like Jeremiah Johnson or something out there, then people might say, oh, they're escaping reality. They don't want to live. Well, maybe that's their meaning. Maybe that they found what they want to do. Maybe they don't know that till they get out there, but maybe they do. But I don't think that necessarily means that they crossed out every approach to things like the whole question approach says here. Let me see here where I am. All right. Good. So here are some, you were ahead of me, some definitions, I guess, for philosophy, because it's really hard to kind of nail down what this thing is. Like I said, the first chapter of your book's called What Are We Doing in This Class? And part of that chapter talks about what this whole thing is exactly. Here are a few from people who names at least that are known to you, and then some other people's ideas that I don't have a name to attach to. But Aristotle, you heard of Aristotle? He's a big hitter. Aristotle. Aristotle defined philosophy as the art of wondering. The art of wondering. Not wandering, but wondering. I wonder why things are like that. I wonder why people do those kind of things. I wonder why. I wonder. Don't you ever wonder? The art of wondering. I wonder, Brendan, here's my wonder. I wonder, Brendan, if you could get a degree, a Bachelor of Arts in wondering.
It's like an online course.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know if the school's accredited or not, but if you met coming home from college, I decided on a major, I'm going to get a BA in wondering. Parents might say, I wonder if you'll go back to college next semester. I wonder if I'm going to pay the bill. I wonder. Art of wondering, yes. Plato, he uses this word again here. Plato says that philosophy is there's this word, stubborn, he likes it, stubborn attempt to think clearly. Stubborn attempt to think clearly. So, again, for the same reasons, we want to make clarity out of things. We want to bring order in our mind, at least. When I say order, I don't mean we want to control people and put them in place. I mean, we want to, just by understanding something, it brings order in our own mind, like as to why that happened, or what's going on there, or what am I seeing there. So it's a stubborn attempt that our minds are always trying to understand things more clearly, and you can stop trying to think about that, but it's a stubborn thing. Your mind just wants to do it. It's just the same way that your mind tries to tell you there's an alligator on the floor, but it's really just your genes. Because the data keeps going in and your mind sees what it sees, or it tries to make order out of it. It's a stubborn thing. It's hard to get away from. Socrates says that philosophy is the quest for a genuinely worthwhile life. Genuinely have an E on the end before the O-line? I think so. Worthwhile life. Yeah, you don't want to end up on your deathbed thinking, I should have given all that money to that university. I don't know. I should have pursued dentistry. That would have been good for me. Yeah, you don't want that at the end. You want to feel like that your life was worthwhile. And how do you get a worthwhile life? By finding meaning, right? You find meaning, and so we're all kind of getting at the same thing here. You're wondering about stuff, you're trying to think clearly about things, you're on this quest to make your life worthwhile. Ultimately, all again reaching back towards meaning. Did you guys know that, by the way, that and we'll talk in detail about this a little bit, but Socrates then had a student, at least that's what is traditionally called. Socrates wouldn't like that term, but Socrates had a student, and his name was Plato. Yeah? Taught him. Then Plato, after Socrates' death, which your book spoils, hello, he's not still alive. Yes?
Wait, which one of the three had a theistic approach again?
I can't say it one more time.
Which one of the three had a theistic approach again? I forgot.
Which one of the three? I didn't label any of these as having a theistic approach.
Oh.
I didn't put that on. I'm saying that these are all these kind of definitions of philosophy. I'm actually kind of going back to what you were saying. You said, would you define philosophy as, trying to find meaning? And these definitions all lead that direction. Trying to think clearly, wondering about things, hopefully clearly, and trying to make your life worthwhile. Yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking out loud. These three in particular, if you just want to know, had some very theistic ideas about things. And then in some ways, they really believed in the power of human intellect. Now, I don't know if there's any discussion about that was God-given or not, but I don't even recall that actually, but they believed that there was a certain amount of things that could be, almost like we think about in Christianity, things are revealed, and then the human intellect can kind of, and this is where they meet in the middle here, this is where faith kind of happens here, kind of pulls these things together. But that's where these three guys are. And the reason that they're all somewhat on the same page is because Socrates taught Plato, and after Socrates dies, Plato becomes a philosopher in his own right and has his own students, and one of those students, most infamously, was Aristotle. Can you imagine that? That's like an intellectual tag team, isn't it? You can't beat this wrestling team, in Acvo stuff. Tag me. Are they wondering? You are correct. Plato's like he knows. Oh, and then Aristotle goes on, and he has a student by the name, later, Alexander the Great. Imagine? These people were connected. Okay? But although they didn't live like luxurious lives or anything, they weren't wealthy and maybe they were infamous, but I don't know about famous at the time. Alexander the Great was. But yeah, it's pretty in history, right? There's some of these events where people kind of converge and they're in the same place at the same time. Augustine has some things like that. There's a scene of his baptism where St. Ambrose is there and St. Monica, his mom, and then St. Augustine, of course, got to be there for his own baptism. And then St. Alypius, his friend Alypius is there. Wow, really? 4 saints in one picture? That's something. Things happen. All right, here's some other ideas, some other definitions. That philosophy, and I don't have a name to attach to these, but just kind of, philosophy is a critical scrutiny of our beliefs and our convictions. That we really go through and really take a look at why we believe what we believe, why we follow what we follow, why we're, and there's part of this, and I'll say in a minute, that's a bit of kind of uncovering maybe of hidden assumptions that we have, like just things that we just believe and have never really thought about before. And uncovering and analyzing those as well, critically scrutinizing those things as well. But so a critical scrutiny of our beliefs, our ideas, our hidden assumptions, our presuppositions, all those things, and bringing to light those things, bringing them to light of our own, intellect and our own thinking and our own experience. This is one, I used to use a book that talked quite a bit about this, but I don't use that textbook anymore, but is this effort to try to keep alive and almost kind of childlike wonder about the world, like to still be fascinated by the world and what happens in the world, and whether it's something natural that's organic that's happening, or whether it's something human that's happening, the way people react to it, but almost having this kind of very curious intellectual curiosity about the world, and how children are real excited about certain things, right? I mean, like they're just excited to see like horses and stuff in the car. You have little brothers and sisters. I mean, I don't know how old, but at some point they just kind of dulls, and then they're like us, right? Then they're like, you see those horses? Yeah. All right. Parents always hope their kids are going to revert back, but they hope they get out of it when they're in it. That's one of the sweet things. wow, she could ask all these questions about horses. And then they stopped asking questions like, oh, it's so sweet and ask those questions about horses. Yeah, kids get excited about things like, they'll walk out into a park and they can be just fascinated by dandelions, and bumblebees and someone else's dog and lots of kids swim in the pool. I don't know. There's just a certain childlike wonder that there's some value to that, and it's something else that's been put on. And these are all correct, and they all come at it, they're all, just philosophy is just that broad. And this is where I get to next, and that's the last one, is that philosophy, definition, just hear what I'm saying. Philosophy poses certain questions that are not addressed by other academic disciplines. There are certain, although philosophy is almost like the mortar between the bricks of these other kind of core disciplines. That's why I say that you're probably not going to get through college without taking this class again. And hopefully more in depth with more time. But it's there are mathematicians who are also philosophers, several actually, and people generally don't come at philosophy with a philosophy degree. They come at it from with other types of backgrounds, and so these questions kind of permeate almost the other fields to a certain degree, but not too deep. But they actually hold together also the disciplines. So they're asking questions in between those other things. You think of mortar between bricks, I think it's a good analogy. But those questions, those answers, those ideas have an effect on those other academic disciplines. So it poses certain questions which are not dealt with by other disciplines. Good. So what time is it? Perfect. So as we kind of we talk about a critical scrutiny of our ideas and art of wondering and trying to think clearly and trying to have a worthwhile life and all this, and there's going to be a lot of thinking that goes on here. Someone said that their image of philosophy was the thinker. Well, I think that's a good one. It may occur in your uncovering of your hidden assumptions and maybe creating new ideas that make sense to you, not because someone said so or because someone that you know fed it to you and you just never really thought about it, but because you believe it. Maybe you latch on to something someone else said and you believe it also, probably so. There's probably wisdom in some of those things, most of them. But as we do this, though, we might have certain conclusions and ideas about life that are not, mainstream ideas, that they go against the grain of the culture. But you've come to that conclusion on your own. You've really thought about it. You've really analyzed it. You've really questioned it. And you come to that conclusion after a while. But that idea, that conclusion you have may not be in line with what the particular culture you live in or the time that you live in is ready to accept or cares to hear, or who knows. There's a German philosopher from the 19th century named Nietzsche. If he died in 1900, does that make him? That makes him 19th century, right? I mean, he lived almost. He went crazy when he was alive. Syphilis works in your brain. Last 12 years, so he wasn't living in that kind of way. But we'll say 19th century. Nietzsche had a term for this. I'll give you the term and then I'll tell you that. He called it these conclusions, these ideas you have that come out of your own self-reflection. He called these things untimely meditations. It's a very nice word. Sounds very elegant. Untimely meditations, which means, but what he means by that is that an untimely meditation is an idea that you express in some way, maybe verbally, maybe in writing, but it has to be expressed. If you just keep it inside, then it's not untimely. You're just holding on to it. But untimely meditation is an idea that you express in some way, verbally, written, however, that goes against the culture or the setting or the time that you live. So if you would have lived in the 50s in Alabama, and you were Caucasian and you believed that African Americans should be allowed to sit at the same table or the same lunch counter with white people that are eating there, that would be an untimely meditation. It may be met with resistance, right? Definitely it would be. Even up into the 70s, maybe then, I don't know. Maybe even today. Who knows? I don't know.
Depends where you are.
Depends on where you are, how deep south you want to go, you know? Right. Actually, here we are in Tulsa, we're all snotty, right? We don't have to go too far from Tulsa to find this kind of racism, would you? Okay. Isn't that funny how we do that? But not us, though. Those people in South Carolina, they're crazy. I found out one time, I went to graduate school. I was on the border of Ohio and West Virginia. I was on the Ohio side, but a lot of people from West Virginia. Of course, to go to the grocery store, to go across the river. Anyway, I was in West Virginia quite a bit that time, just across the border there. And I started talking to somebody, and I told him I'm from Oklahoma, and he said, yeah, you know, this guy from West Virginia says, you know, we tell jokes about people from Oklahoma. That's like kind of our go-to thing, you know, about cousins meeting each other at family reunions, things like those kind of jokes, you know. I was like, that's funny. We tell jokes about you guys like that. It's West Virginia. That's our go-to state. That's right. He thought that was, what? We would never do that. That's an untimely meditation. Yeah, what else? So, you know what I'm talking about. And it makes other people uncomfortable, right? It makes people in the South, make them uncomfortable that African Americans want to sit at a lunch counter, or that anyone even express that idea at all. Yeah. Think about it. In chapel, they could ask you to say a few words about something, and you could just go off on a whole, you know, thing before they pulled you off the podium, right? And all kinds of things that go against the setting and the culture that you're in right there. If I decided that, you know, I'm a Marxist and I put on some fatigues and go to Utica Square, right, and stand up on the Saks Fifth Avenue on a milk carton and start reading out of the Communist Manifesto, you know, how long is that going to last for? That makes people really uncomfortable, especially the crowd that shops over there, right? They have no interest in Marxism. However, if I take the same message, the same fatigues and same everything, and take it to, you know, San Salvador and El Salvador, I might get a few listeners, right? And people, this sounds like, yeah, I like this idea. I have to Spanish first, though. Find a Spanish copy of the book. But yeah, apparently there are plenty of copies. But yeah, there I might be met with I might get a following. Utica Square, I just get the rent-a-cops over there and come over and politely ask me to leave, and then maybe not so politely. But yeah, if you don't want to hear about that, well, there's nothing beneficial to Marxism for people who shop at Saks. That's, in fact, it's all backwards. So anyway, yeah, that would be an untimely meditation. I would say so. It goes against the culture of the time, the situation that you're in. Good. So that could be a result of this whole thing. And I'm sure you probably have this uncomfortable situation where someone said something, even in your home, among family, you know, someone says something, and you're just like, I'll tell you one thing happened the other day. It was a few weeks ago. My mom, she said that she had seen the movie, the Queen movie, that Bohemian Rhapsody, and the final scene. You guys know this movie? Is them at Live Aid in that performance they put on, right? And you know they recreated that, like almost like move for, like it's choreographed exactly with how they actually did it. And my mom said, well, I watched the video of the actual performance, and then I watched the movie, and she said, I feel like the movie version was better than the live performance. And Sam and Jacob just like looked at me like, hold him down. Grab hold of Dad's arm, quickly. I said, boys, we gotta go. Get your stuff.
Never gonna see her again.
I haven't seen her since then. I blamed it on COVID, you know. No. So that's untimely meditation. Don't talk that way in front of me. That wasn't so horrible, but it was a horrible statement to make. All right. Let me see here. Do I want to say? Okay, got that, covered that. No, I'm time limitations. Got way ahead of myself here. Okay. Again, what time is it, please?
51.
51? Really, that all just took 6 minutes? Jeez. All right. So I asked you about philosophical questions, and I'm going to give you some characteristics of philosophical questions. And you'll see that, well, the first two might be, but the third one is definitely always a part of philosophical questions. The first one is that they tend to be broad and general questions. Like, what's the meaning of life? That's a pretty big question. Yeah. You can narrow it down a little bit. So what's the meaning of my life? That takes it just to you at least, right? But they tend to be broad and general questions. Not always, but still, asking people what is truth, what is charity, what is love. Boy, that's a good question. I can't just answer that in a few minutes. That's not a 500 word essay. General questions. Number two, and if you wouldn't mind, if you're taking notes, write it down this way, that they may appear to have little practical use, even if you got the answer. What is truth? I really thinking of that now. But, if you're on trial for your life, what is truth might be real important to you all of a sudden. And that other people know what truth is might be even more important to you. And be able to apply that standard of truth and be able to exonerate you from the crimes that you probably committed that are saying you're not guilty of. Everyone in prison is not guilty of that. I didn't do that. I'm innocent. What is truth? In prison, you're not going to probably find out. Three is that there's no standard, let's say, technique or procedure to go about answering the question. So, you have a big broad question: what's the meaning of life? What is truth? What is justice? What is piety? What is beauty? Things like that. And I could assign that to the whole class and say, yeah, by tomorrow, figure this out here. And you guys might go 3, 6, 10 different ways with that approach to answering. Because there is no standard way to go about answering it. You may agree on a couple of ways. Yeah, you did a better thing than I did. I talked to a judge, you talked to a lawyer. Maybe I should have gone to the judge to talk about truth. Maybe, I don't know. But there's no standard technique or procedure to go about answering. That's the one that applies to all of them. Yeah, and that's maybe what makes philosophy such a big field, is that people are rehashing questions, but they're coming at it in a different way. They're trying to answer it in a different way. Okay. So, if I ask Murphy, let's act like you don't know, but is there beer in your fridge at home? Tell me how you go about figuring that out. You're free to do whatever you need to do to go, but you got to go home. Right? Move the mustard out of the way. Right. And maybe there's beer, maybe there's not, right? Right? We have a better idea? Better idea?
Like text someone
Yeah.
who's at home right
Okay.
now to open the fridge and tell me to
Right.
go there.
Very good. So you can have someone do what she did for you. Right? Send you a picture of the fridge. Yeah, here's a Schlitz right here. Yeah, I got PBR right here on the second shelf. Picture, right? And you say, oh yeah, that's our refrigerator because that's the half sandwich that I ate last night. Right? That's my leftovers from Panda Express. That's my sushi. Right? So yeah, I mean, but is that a philosophical question, Murphy? Is there beer in your fridge? Is that philosophical? No, I mean, there is or there isn't, right? I mean, and right away, you guys can put the pretty equal and almost identical plan to figure out how to do it. Lydia, if I ask you, then, are there any trout in Missouri? How would you find out?
Could I Google search it?
You could Google search it, and would you look at like joesbaitstand.com or, I need to know for sure, so.
Missouri Wildlife.
Say again?
The Missouri Wildlife.
You know what, yes, there may be actually an organization, a governmental organization, a state government organization, right? But maybe they call it like the Fish, Game, and Wildlife, something or other, right? Maybe they're uniformed, I don't know, right? Make sense? Okay, so maybe they publish a book or something, it has pictures in it. You go to the fish section, right? That makes the poultry and produce. Look, trout. And it's an official book. Well, okay, that works. What else could you do, Lydia? Whatever you need to do. You don't have to be down here at school.
Yeah, you could go to Missouri.
You could go to Missouri. You gotta buy a fly rod or something, right? You gotta, or at least some kind of fishing pole. Well, it's gonna go to a creek. Start fishing. Yeah. And you catch a trout. Rainbow trout, maybe. Brown trout. And you bring it back. And then Murphy's bringing the beer, we're gonna have a fish fry. That sound all right? That's good. All right. But okay, so there's and this first idea about going to like Google, okay, well that's kind of a go-to thing, right? But again, there's a lot of nefarious kind of sources out there that I don't know whether you care about trout in Missouri, but maybe they wouldn't know what they're talking about. But maybe something like a .gov address, like their URL .gov, and it's like Fish, Game, Wildlife, MO, like Missouri .gov. Oh, they know. And then I click on it and trout search within the site. There they are. Okay. That's how you know. Is that a philosophical question, Lydia?
No.
No. I got a couple more questions like that tomorrow. They're very exciting. Then I'm going to give you assignments there in Missouri and other places. Exciting places.
Anybody in class?
Yeah. You gotta. That's the real trick.
There is a